The morning shift at Martin Tower started at 5:45, which meant Elena Rodriguez had to leave her apartment in the Bronx by 4:30 to make it on time. She'd learned during her first week that Mr. Christopher Martin expected his executive floors to be pristine before the first employee arrived at 7. And pristine meant invisible, no vacuum cords in hallways, no cleaning carts blocking doorways, no evidence that anyone had been there at all. Elena moved through the 52nd floor with practiced efficiency, her hands working automatically while her mind calculated numbers. Rent was due in 6 days. Sofia's medication refill would cost $217 at the pharmacy. The electric bill sat unopened in her purse because she couldn't bear to see how high it had gotten during last month's heat wave. She had $463 in her checking account, and payday wasn't until next Friday. She paused at the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Manhattan, the city beginning to wake beneath a sky streaked with pink and gold. From up here, everything looked clean and orderly, the chaos and struggle invisible from this height. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass for just a moment, allowing herself 10 seconds of stillness before returning to work. The executive conference room required special attention. Mr. Martin had hosted a late meeting yesterday, and the cleaners from the evening shift had missed several details. Elena wiped down the massive table until the dark wood gleamed, straightened each leather chair to precise angles, and replaced the water carafes with fresh ones from the small kitchen attached to the room. She was polishing fingerprints from the glass wall panels when she heard footsteps in the hallway. Her stomach dropped. It was barely 6:15. No one was supposed to be here yet. Elena grabbed her cleaning caddy and turned toward the door, intending to slip out before whoever it was noticed her presence. But she moved too quickly, her hip catching the edge of a chair and sending it scraping loudly across the floor. The footsteps stopped. Then the door opened, and Elena found herself face to face with Christopher Martin himself. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. She'd seen him before. Of course, brief glimpses as he moved through the building, always surrounded by men in dark suits, always projecting an authority that made people step aside without him having to ask. But she'd never been this close, never had those steel gray eyes focused entirely on her. He was tall, easily 6'3", with dark hair silvered at the temples, and features that would have been handsome if they weren't so severe. His charcoal suit probably cost more than Elena made in 3 months, and he wore it with the casual confidence of someone who'd never had to think about money. But it was his eyes that held her frozen cold and assessing, taking in every detail of her presence in his conference room. "I'm sorry, Mr. Martin." The words tumbled out quickly, professionally. "I was just finishing the conference room. I'll be out of your way immediately." He didn't respond right away, just stood there studying her with an intensity that made her want to fidget. Elena kept her hands steady on the cleaning caddy, her chin up despite the fear coursing through her veins. She couldn't afford to lose this job, not with Sofia's medical bills and the rent and everything else barely held together by willpower and 80-hour work weeks. "You're new," he said finally, his voice low and controlled, with the faintest trace of an accent she couldn't quite place. "How long have you been working here?" 3 weeks, sir." "And you start at what time?" Elena's mouth went dry. She knew what he was really asking, whether she was supposed to be here this early or if she'd somehow violated building protocol. 5:45, sir. The morning shift begins then, so the executive floors are ready before 7. Something flickered across his expression, too quick to identify. "What's your name?" "Elena Rodriguez." "Well, Elena Rodriguez, the conference room looks perfect." He moved past her into the room, his expensive cologne mixing with the scent of lemon furniture polish. He walked to the windows she'd just cleaned, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city below. Better than it usually does, actually. The evening crew tends to miss details. Relief flooded through her, but she stayed quiet, unsure if she was being dismissed or expected to respond. Christopher turned back to face her, leaning against the window with his arms crossed. "You have a daughter." The statement, not a question, sent ice through Elena's veins. How did he know that? Had someone told him? Was this about the time she'd had to leave early when Sofia's school called about a fever? "Yes, sir." She kept her voice steady through sheer force of will. "Sofia, she's 7. And her father? Not in the picture." The words came out harder than she intended, but Christopher's expression didn't change. "That must be difficult. Single mother, working multiple jobs, I imagine, trying to keep everything together." He tilted his head slightly, still watching her with that unnerving focus. "How many jobs, Elena?" 3, sir. "Here. Then I clean offices in Midtown 3 afternoons a week, and I work checkout at a grocery store on weekends. 3 jobs. He said it quietly, like he was turning the information over in his mind. And Sofia is healthy? The question hit too close to the fear that lived in Elena's chest every single day. She has juvenile arthritis. It's manageable with medication and physical therapy. Manageable but expensive. Yes, what else could she say? That some months she had to choose between Sofia's physical therapy and keeping the lights on. That she'd become an expert at smiling through the pain of watching her daughter struggle with tasks other 7-year-olds took for granted? Christopher pushed away from the window and walked toward her. Elena forced herself not to step back, not to show the anxiety spiking through her system. He stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "I'm going to ask you something, and I want an honest answer," he said, his voice dropping lower. "Are you happy working here, Elena?" The question was so unexpected that her carefully constructed professional mask slipped. "I'm grateful for the work, Mr. Martin. That's not what I asked." She swallowed hard, thinking about the 4:30 wake-ups and the ache in her knees from kneeling on hard floors, and the way she fell into bed each night too exhausted to even cry. "Happiness isn't really something I think about, sir. I think about keeping my daughter fed and healthy and safe. Everything else is secondary." Something in his expression shifted. A crack in the ice that revealed heat beneath. "How old are you?" 28. 28 years old, working yourself into the ground, and you've convinced yourself that happiness is secondary. He shook his head slightly. "That's not living, Elena. That's just surviving. Surviving is all I can afford right now, Mr. Martin." She lifted her chin, meeting his eyes directly despite every instinct screaming at her to look away from this powerful, dangerous man. "But I'm very good at it." The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "I can see that." He glanced at his watch, then back at her. "You're going to be late for your next task if I keep you much longer, but I want you to report to Human Resources at 3 o'clock today. Tell them I sent you." Panic seized her throat. "Mr. Martin, if I did something wrong." "You did nothing wrong. 3 o'clock, Elena. Don't be late." Then he was gone, striding out of the conference room with the same commanding presence he'd entered with, leaving Elena standing alone with her cleaning caddy and a heart that wouldn't stop racing. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of anxiety. Elena finished the executive floors, completed her assigned areas on the lower levels, and tried not to think about what reporting to Human Resources might mean. In her experience, unexpected summons to HR never ended well. By 2:30, she'd convinced herself she was being fired. Maybe Christopher Martin had decided she was too chatty, or maybe he'd discovered something in her background check that he didn't like. Maybe he simply didn't want employees who worked multiple jobs, who came to work exhausted and desperate. She arrived at the HR office on the 43rd floor at exactly 3 o'clock, her hands clammy with nervous sweat. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly styled hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, gestured her toward a closed door. "Miss Chen is expecting you. Go right in." Margaret Chen sat behind a sleek desk, her expression professionally neutral as Elena entered. "Miss Rodriguez, please, sit down." Elena sat, her back straight, hands folded in her lap to hide their trembling. "Mr. Martin has requested some changes to your employment arrangement," Miss Chen began, pulling up something on her computer. "Effective immediately, you'll be transitioning to a full-time position with Martin Enterprises." The words didn't make sense. "I don't understand. I'm already working here full-time." "You're currently employed through a third-party cleaning service. Mr. Martin wants you hired directly by the company, with a different role." "Miss..." Chen turned her monitor so Elena could see the screen. "He's creating a new position, executive floor supervisor. You would oversee all cleaning and maintenance on floors 45 through 55, manage a small team, and coordinate directly with building management regarding executive needs." Elena stared at the job description, her mind struggling to process what she was reading. The salary listed made her breath catch. It was more than double what she currently made from all 3 jobs combined. "This has to be a mistake," she said quietly. "It's not a mistake." Mr. Martin was quite specific about his requirements. Miss Chen's expression softened slightly. He also mentioned that the position comes with full benefits, including comprehensive health insurance that covers dependents. Comprehensive health insurance. That would mean Sofia's medications, her physical therapy, all of it covered. Elena could feel tears threatening and blinked them back hard. "Why?" The question came out barely above a whisper. "Why would he do this?" "I don't question Mr. Martin's decisions, Miss Rodriguez. I simply implement them." "Miss..." Chen slid a folder across the desk. "This contains the formal offer letter, benefits information, and new hire paperwork. The position starts Monday, which gives you time to give notice to your other employers. Do you accept? Elena thought about Sofia, about the medication that cost $217 every month, about the physical therapy appointments she'd had to cancel because she couldn't afford both the copay and groceries. She thought about the exhaustion that had become her constant companion, the way she couldn't remember the last time she'd slept more than 5 hours or eaten a meal that wasn't whatever Sofia had left on her plate. Yes, she heard herself say. I accept. Excellent. Miss Chen pulled out a pen. Let's go through the paperwork. An hour later, Elena left the HR office in a daze, the folder clutched against her chest. She should have felt elated, relieved, grateful. Instead, she felt deeply unsettled. Men like Christopher Martin didn't hand out life-changing opportunities without expecting something in return. The question was what he wanted from her, and whether she could afford to give it. Elena didn't see Christopher again for the rest of the week. She gave notice to her other 2 jobs, both employers clearly relieved to lose an employee who'd been running herself ragged and spent her weekend reading and rereading the benefits package, trying to convince herself it was real. Monday morning, she arrived at Martin Tower at 6 o'clock, an hour earlier than necessary, unable to sleep from nervous anticipation. The security guard at the employee entrance gave her a new badge, the kind with full building access, instead of just maintenance clearance, and directed her to the 45th floor. Her new office was small but private, with a window that overlooked the city and a desk that had clearly been assembled recently. A computer sat waiting, already logged into the building management system. On the desk lay a note in precise handwriting. Welcome to your new position. My assistant will brief you on expectations at 8 a.m. CM. Elena sat down in the chair, a real ergonomic chair, not the folding metal ones the cleaning staff used, and let herself feel, for just a moment, the magnitude of what had changed. She had an office, a salary, health insurance for Sofia, and she owed it all to a man she didn't understand, whose motives she couldn't guess, who wielded power like a weapon and had chosen, for reasons unknown, to turn that weapon in her favor. The question that had haunted her all weekend returned with renewed force. What did Christopher Martin want from her? She'd find out soon enough. In the world of men like him, nothing came without a price. Elena just had to hope that when she learned what it was, she could afford to pay it. The briefing at 8 o'clock was conducted by James Park, Christopher Martin's executive assistant, a man in his early 40s with sharp eyes and an efficiency that bordered on intimidating. He walked Elena through her new responsibilities with methodical precision, explaining schedules, protocols, and the exacting standards Mr. Martin expected for the executive floors. Mr. Martin values discretion above almost everything else, James said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. Meetings that run late, conversations that seem unusual, visitors who don't announce themselves through normal channels. Your job is to ensure the environment is perfect, and to remember nothing. Elena nodded, understanding the subtext. Christopher Martin's business dealings weren't entirely conventional, and she was being trusted or tested to keep her mouth shut about whatever she witnessed. The team you'll supervise consists of 4 people, James continued. They're experienced, loyal, and frankly, they were skeptical about having a new supervisor imposed on them. You'll need to earn their respect quickly. I understand. Do you? James's eyes narrowed slightly. Because I'm going to be honest with you, Miss Rodriguez. No one gets promoted this quickly in Martin Enterprises unless Mr. Martin has a specific reason. The staff will speculate about what that reason is, and most of those speculations won't be flattering to you. Heat rose in Elena's cheeks, but she kept her voice steady. Let them speculate. I'll prove myself through my work. Something that might have been approval flickered across James's expression. Good answer. Your team arrives at 6 tomorrow morning. I suggest you arrive earlier to prepare. Over the following 2 weeks, Elena threw herself into the new position with single-minded determination. She arrived at 5 every morning, stayed until 7 at night, and learned everything she could about managing people, coordinating schedules, and anticipating needs before they were articulated. Her team, Maria, David, Lynn, and Robert, tested her constantly, pushing boundaries and watching to see if she'd crack under the pressure. She didn't crack. She'd survived far worse than skeptical coworkers. Slowly, grudgingly, they began to respect her. Maria commented that the executive floors had never looked better. David admitted she had good instincts about when to schedule deep cleaning projects. Lynn started asking her opinion instead of just following orders. Robert, the hardest to win over, finally nodded at her one morning and said, "You're doing all right, boss. It was the highest praise she could have hoped for. But through all of it, she rarely saw Christopher himself. He was a presence more than a person arriving early, leaving late, always surrounded by men in expensive suits who moved like they knew how to handle themselves in situations that had nothing to do with business negotiations. She'd catch glimpses of him through conference room windows, his expression cold and focused, or hear his voice in the hallway, speaking in that low, controlled tone that made people straighten their spines. Once, she'd been cleaning fingerprints off a glass door when he'd walked past. So close she could smell his cologne. Their eyes had met for just a second, and he'd given her the smallest nod acknowledgement, maybe approval, before continuing on his way. That brief interaction had stayed with her for days. The health insurance kicked in at the start of her 3rd week, and Elena had taken Sofia to Dr. Patel for the first comprehensive checkup they'd been able to afford in over a year. The doctor had been cautiously optimistic, adjusting Sofia's medication regimen and scheduling physical therapy sessions twice a week at a facility that actually specialized in juvenile arthritis instead of the general clinic they'd been using before. "Mommy, my hands don't hurt as much anymore," Sofia had said on the subway ride home, flexing her small fingers experimentally. "Dr. Patel said the new medicine is working really good." Elena had pulled her daughter close, kissing the top of her head, and felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. This was why she'd accepted Christopher's offer, whatever strings might be attached. Sofia deserved to be pain-free, to run and play and just be a kid. On Friday of her 3rd week, James appeared in her office at 6 in the evening, just as Elena was preparing to leave. "Mr. Martin would like to see you in his office," he said, his expression unreadable. Elena's stomach knotted. "Now?" "Now." She followed James to the elevator, then up to the 55th floor, the executive level she'd cleaned but never actually visited during business hours. The hallway was quiet, most employees already gone for the weekend. James led her to a set of double doors at the end of the corridor and knocked once before opening them. Christopher's office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Manhattan at dusk. The space was decorated in dark wood and leather, bookshelves lining one wall, a seating area with a low sofa and chairs near the windows. Christopher himself sat behind an enormous desk, reviewing something on his computer. He looked up when they entered, his expression neutral. "Thank you, James. You can leave us." James retreated, closing the doors behind him with a soft click. Elena stood in the middle of the office, her hands clasped in front of her, trying to read Christopher's mood and failing completely. "Sit," he said, gesturing to one of the chairs across from his desk. She sat, her back straight, waiting. Christopher leaned back in his chair, studying her with that same intense focus she remembered from their first encounter. "James tells me you're doing well. Better than expected, actually. Your team respects you, and the quality of work on the executive floors has improved noticeably." "Thank you, Mr. Martin. How is Sofia? The new insurance helping?" The personal question caught her off guard. "Yes, very much. She's starting physical therapy next week, and her doctor is optimistic about her progress." "Good." He stood and moved to the windows, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city lights beginning to sparkle below. "I want to talk to you about something, Elena. Something that goes beyond your current position." Here it was, the price she'd been waiting to learn. "I'm listening," she said quietly. "I host private meetings occasionally, here or at other locations I own throughout the city. These meetings involve business partners who value their privacy and discretion." He turned to face her, his expression serious. "I need someone I can trust to manage the details, arranging the space, ensuring privacy, coordinating with my security team. Someone observant enough to anticipate needs but smart enough to forget everything they see and hear." Elena's mind raced, understanding exactly what he was asking. These weren't normal business meetings. These were the kind of meetings where dangerous men made dangerous deals, where the wrong word overheard could have consequences she didn't want to imagine. "You want me to work at these meetings," she said carefully. "I want you to supervise the preparation and maintenance of the spaces where they occur. You wouldn't be present during the meetings themselves, but you'd be nearby, available, if something is needed." He moved closer, stopping just in front of his desk. "The pay would be substantial, double your current salary, with bonuses for each event. But the risks are real, Elena. The people I do business with don't tolerate mistakes or indiscretion." "Are you threatening me, Mr. Martin?" "I'm being honest with you. Something I suspect you appreciate more than false reassurances." His eyes held hers. "If you accept this position, you'll be under my protection. That means no one touches you, no one threatens you, no one so much as looks at you wrong without answering to me. But it also means you're part of my world in a way that can't be undone easily. Elena thought about Sofia, about the physical therapy appointments and the new medications and the possibility of her daughter actually living without constant pain. She thought about the rent that was paid on time now, the utilities that didn't threaten to shut off, the groceries she could buy without calculating every penny. What kind of meetings? She asked. The kind where businessmen discuss territories and agreements and the resolution of conflicts. Christopher's voice was measured, careful. Nothing you haven't already guessed, I suspect. He was right. She'd seen enough the men with weapons concealed under tailored jackets, the conversations that stopped when cleaning staff entered rooms, the tension that sometimes filled the executive floors, like electricity, before a storm. Christopher Martin wasn't just a real estate developer. He was something else, something dangerous, and he was offering her a place in that world. I need to think about it, she said finally. Fair enough. Take the weekend. But Elena? He waited until she met his eyes again. Whatever you decide, your current position is secure. I'm not threatening your livelihood if you say no. I'm offering you an opportunity to earn more, to provide better for Sofia. The choice is entirely yours. She stood, her legs steadier than she expected. Thank you for being honest with me. It's the least I owe you. She was almost to the door when his voice stopped her. Elena. She turned back. You asked me once why I gave you this opportunity. Would you like to know the real reason? Her throat felt tight, but she nodded. Because I watched you work for 3 weeks before we ever spoke. I saw how thorough you were, how much pride you took in doing a job most people consider beneath them. I saw you arrive early and stay late, exhausted but determined. And I saw the photo you keep in your locker, you and Sofia, both smiling despite everything. His expression softened slightly, the ice melting just enough to reveal warmth beneath. You remind me of my mother. She raised me alone, worked 3 jobs, sacrificed everything to give me opportunities she'd never have. She died when I was 19, before I could repay any of it. So when I see someone like you, fighting that same fight, I help. Because I couldn't help her. Tears burned behind Elena's eyes, but she blinked them back. I'm sorry you lost her. So am I. But she taught me something important, that strength isn't about power or money or control. It's about getting up every single day and doing what needs to be done for the people you love, even when you're exhausted and scared and don't know how you'll make it through another week. He held her gaze. You have that strength, Elena. I recognized it immediately. She couldn't speak past the lump in her throat, so she just nodded and left before the tears could fall. Elena spent the weekend researching Christopher Martin. What she found confirmed her suspicions. He owned dozens of properties throughout New York, had investments in legitimate businesses, but was also rumored to have connections to organized crime. Nothing proven, nothing prosecuted, but the whispers were there in the comment sections of business articles, in the carefully worded news reports about investigations that went nowhere. He was dangerous. Being associated with him was dangerous. But he'd also given her a lifeline when she was drowning, had offered her dignity and opportunity when everyone else had seen her as invisible. And he'd done it because she reminded him of someone he'd loved and lost. On Monday morning, Elena arrived at Christopher's office at 7 o'clock. James looked surprised to see her, but gestured her toward the doors. Christopher was already at his desk, immaculate in a navy suit, reviewing something on his tablet. He looked up when she entered. I accept, Elena said before she could second-guess herself. I'll work your private meetings, but I have conditions. His eyebrow arched slightly. Conditions? Sofia's safety is my priority. If anything about this work puts her at risk, I'm out immediately, and you help me relocate somewhere safe. Agreed. I want everything in writing. The pay, the expectations, the protections you're promising. A real contract, not just a handshake deal. My lawyer will have something drafted by this afternoon, and I need to know that if I see something truly wrong, something that crosses lines I can't uncross, I can walk away without consequences. Christopher stood, moving around his desk to stand before her. Define truly wrong. Anything involving children. Anything involving trafficking. Anything that would make me complicit in harm I couldn't live with. His expression turned cold, but she could tell the anger wasn't directed at her. I don't do business with people who traffic in human beings, Elena. That's a hard line I've never crossed and never will. You have my word on that. Then we have a deal. He extended his hand, and she shook it, feeling the strength in his grip, the calluses that suggested he hadn't always lived in expensive suits and corner offices. Welcome to the inner circle, he said quietly. I promise you won't regret this. As Elena left his office, she hoped he was right, because she'd just made a choice that would change everything, for better or worse. She just had to hope it was better. The first private meeting Elena supervised took place the following Friday, at one of Christopher's properties in Tribeca, an upscale restaurant called Meridian that was closed to the public for private events twice a month. James had briefed her extensively on the protocols. Arrive 2 hours before the meeting. Ensure the private dining room on the second floor was perfect. Coordinate with Christopher's security team on entrances and exits, and make herself available in a small office adjacent to the dining room in case anything was needed. Elena followed the instructions precisely, checking and rechecking every detail. The table settings gleamed under soft lighting. The bar was fully stocked with expensive liquor. The temperature was exactly 70 degrees. She'd coordinated with the chef to ensure the menu Christopher had selected would be executed flawlessly. At 7 o'clock, the guests began arriving. Elena stayed in the small office as instructed. The door cracked just enough that she could monitor the hallway. She watched as men in expensive suits were escorted upstairs by Christopher's security, large, quiet men who moved with lethal efficiency. She recognized the power dynamics immediately, could see who was in charge and who was deferring, who was comfortable and who was nervous. Christopher arrived last, and the energy in the hallway shifted palpably. He moved like a king entering his court, confident and commanding, speaking briefly with his security before entering the dining room. For the next 3 hours, Elena sat in that small office and listened to muffled conversation through the walls. She couldn't make out specific words, but she heard the rhythms of negotiation, long stretches of calm discussion punctuated by raised voices, then silence, then laughter. Once, someone knocked on her door, one of Christopher's security guards. "Mr. Martin needs more ice for the bar," he said simply. Elena retrieved it from the kitchen herself, passing it to the guard without ever entering the dining room. Through the briefly opened door, she caught a glimpse of Christopher at the head of the table, his expression controlled and focused, listening to something another man was saying with intense attention. Then the door closed, and she returned to her waiting. The meeting ended just after 10. Elena stayed in the office while the guests departed, listening to the sounds of cars pulling away, security doing final sweeps. When silence finally fell, she emerged to begin coordinating the cleanup with the restaurant staff. Christopher found her in the dining room 20 minutes later, overseeing the breakdown. "Everything went well," he said, his voice carrying the faint edge of exhaustion. "No issues?" "None. The kitchen said you barely touched your food, though." A hint of amusement crossed his features. "I rarely eat during negotiations. Makes it easier to stay sharp." He watched her for a moment, then added, "You did well tonight, Elena. Exactly what I needed. I just followed James's instructions." "No. You anticipated needs before they arose. The ice before we had to ask. The temperature adjustment in the 3rd hour when the room got too warm. The fresh coffee ready exactly when the conversation shifted to dessert." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "That's the difference between following instructions and actually understanding the work. You understand." Pride bloomed warm in her chest, but she kept her expression professional. "Thank you, Mr. Martin." "Christopher," he said quietly. "When we're in private settings like this, you can call me Christopher." The intimacy of the offer caught her off guard. "I don't think that's appropriate." "Probably not, but I'm offering anyway." He glanced around the dining room, taking in the efficient cleanup happening around them. "Go home, Elena. It's late, and I'm sure Sofia is wondering where you are." She'd left Sofia with Mrs. Chen, a neighbor who sometimes babysat when Elena's mother wasn't available. But he was right, it was late, and she should get home. "Good night, Christopher," she said, testing the name on her tongue. His eyes held hers for a long moment. "Good night, Elena." As she gathered her things and headed for the elevator, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted tonight. Some invisible line had been crossed, some boundary blurred. She told herself it was just the intimacy of working closely on a high-pressure event, the natural bonding that came from successful collaboration. But deep down, she knew it was more than that, and that scared her more than anything else. Over the next 6 weeks, Elena supervised 8 more private meetings at various locations throughout Manhattan. She fell into a rhythm with Christopher's security team, learned the preferences of his regular business associates, and developed an almost preternatural ability to anticipate what would be needed before anyone asked. The money was extraordinary. Her bank account, which had never held more than a few $100s, now showed a balance that made her dizzy every time she checked it. She'd paid off Sofia's outstanding medical bills, replaced their threadbare furniture, and even started a small savings account for emergencies. Sofia was thriving. The physical therapy was working miracles. She could grip a pencil without pain now, could run on the playground without her hands swelling afterward. Her teachers commented on how much happier she seemed, how much more engaged. "You're different too. Mommy," Sofia said one evening as Elena tucked her into bed. "You smile more now. You're not always tired." Elena kissed her daughter's forehead, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo. "I'm just happy you're feeling better, baby. Is it because of your new job? With Mr. Martin?" The question made Elena pause. "What do you know about Mr. Martin?" "Just that you work for him now, and he pays you more money so I can go to the good doctor." Sofia's brown eyes, so much like Elena's own, studied her seriously. "Is he nice?" Elena thought about Christopher, about the cold authority he projected in business and the unexpected warmth she'd glimpsed in private moments, about the way he'd helped her because she reminded him of his mother, about the protection he'd promised and so far delivered. "He's complicated," she said finally. "But yes, I think he's nice, in his own way." "Good." Sofia snuggled deeper into her blankets. "I'm glad you have a nice boss now." As Elena turned off the light and closed the door, she reflected on how much her life had changed in 2 months. Everything was better, objectively speaking. So why did she feel like she was standing on the edge of something dangerous, waiting for the ground to shift beneath her feet? Her phone buzzed with a text. "Christopher, need to see you tomorrow. My office, 6 p.m. Come alone." Elena stared at the message, her heart rate picking up. Come alone, that was new. Usually, James was present for any meetings about work assignments. She texted back, "Is something wrong?" The response came immediately. "No. Just need to discuss something important. See you tomorrow." Elena set the phone down and tried to calm her racing thoughts. He'd said nothing was wrong. She had to trust that. But as she lay in bed that night, sleep eluding her despite exhaustion, she couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would change everything. Again. Elena arrived at Christopher's office at 6, her palms damp with nerves. The 55th floor was nearly deserted, only security remaining. "Close the door," Christopher said without turning from the windows, whiskey glass in hand. She obeyed, waiting. "Do you know what today is?" He turned to face her. 2 months since I promoted you. Since I brought you into my world. I remember. Which is why I need to tell you something before you hear it elsewhere." He retrieved a folder from his desk and handed it to her. "Open it." Inside were surveillance photos, Sofia leaving school, her mother leaving their Queen's apartment, Elena herself entering the building. "Have you been having us watched?" Fear sharpened her voice. "Yes, for your protection. But these photos weren't taken by my people." Christopher's voice went cold. "They were taken by someone working for the Cordova family. They're my competitors, and somehow they identified you as someone I care about." The room tilted. "Why would they think that?" "Because I've been careless. The way I speak to you, the attention I pay someone noticed." He moved closer. "Your family is now a target. I need to implement security measures immediately." "Security? Christopher? I have a 7-year-old daughter. How do I explain armed guards?" "The security will be invisible." His hand caught her arm gently. "I take full responsibility for this, but I need you to trust me to handle it." "Trust you? You've been making decisions about my life without telling me, and now Sofia could be in danger because of your business." "Yes," he didn't sugarcoat it. "And I will burn the Cordova operation to the ground before I let them touch her. I need to take Sofia somewhere safe." "No, running makes you vulnerable. Here, I can protect you." He pulled out another folder. "You and Sofia move into one of my secure properties. Upper West Side, excellent schools, 24-hour security." Elena stared. "And in return, you expect what exactly? Men like me? Men with power who make offers with strings attached." "I left one controlling situation, Christopher. I won't walk into another." He moved toward her with predatory grace. "What this is, Elena, is me trying to keep you alive. Me lying awake, imagining what they might do to you, and feeling sick. Me caring about you so much I'm willing to start a war. I'm not your ex-husband," he continued fiercely. "I'm not trying to control you. There's a difference." "Is there? Because it looks the same, someone else making decisions? Holding all the power. Then take some power back." His voice softened. "Tell me what you need." The question caught her off guard. "I need to see the apartment first. Details about security. Assurance. Sofia's routine stays normal. Done. All of it. He typed rapidly on his phone. We'll go tomorrow morning. And what about us? The question slipped out. You said you care about me. What does that mean? He cupped her face with both hands. It means I'm in love with you. It means I have been since you looked me in the eye and told me happiness was secondary to survival. It means the thought of something happening to you makes me lose my mind. You can't, we barely know each other. I know you wake at 4:30 from habit. I know you give Sofia the last bite of every meal. I know you cry in the shower because you don't want to burden anyone. His voice roughened. I know you're stronger than you believe and braver than you realize. This is insane. Probably. But I stopped caring about sanity the moment you made me feel something other than cold calculation. I have a daughter. Responsibilities. I'm asking you to let me help carry the weight you've been carrying alone. He leaned his forehead against hers. To trust that what I feel is real, and that I will never use your vulnerability against you. She should pull away, should protect herself and Sofia, but she didn't want to. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I. You terrify me, Elena Rodriguez, but I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. She kissed him then, tentative at first, then deeper. All the tension and longing of 2 months poured into it. Stay with me tonight, he said when they broke apart. Let me prove you don't have to be afraid of me. Elena thought about Sofia, safely at her mother's for the weekend, about how tired she was of being alone. Okay. The next morning, they stood in the bright 3-bedroom apartment. It was beautiful, hardwood floors, large windows, safe. Sofia's school is 6 blocks from here, Christopher explained. The route is covered by security cameras. What if this never ends? What if there's always another threat? Then I handle each one as it comes. His hand settled on her shoulders. This is the reality of being with me. What happens if I say I can't do this? Pain flickered across his face. Then I move you somewhere far from New York under new identities. I protect you from a distance. You'd let me go? Your safety matters more than my happiness. His hand cupped her cheek. The choice is always yours. Elena looked around, imagining their life here. Protected but confined, safe but watched. Not perfect, but perfect had never been an option. I need to talk to Sofia. She deserves to understand. Relief washed over his face. Does that mean you're saying yes? It means I'll try. One day at a time. But Christopher, if this hurts Sofia, I'm out. Completely understood. She stepped into his arms. Come to dinner tonight. Meet Sofia properly before we turn her world upside down. His smile transformed his severe features. I'd be honored. As they left, Elena felt the weight of her decision. She was committing to a life she didn't fully understand, with a man whose world was built on danger, but he loved her. And she loved him. And sometimes, that had to be enough. Love, Elena was learning, meant choosing someone anyway, even when safety was temporary, even when everything could fall apart. She was choosing Christopher Martin, with all the danger and complications, for better or worse. Starting tomorrow, dinner that evening was both ordinary and extraordinary. Elena's mother, Maria, had raised her eyebrows when Elena called to say she was bringing someone to meet Sofia, but she'd agreed to watch from a distance, giving them space while remaining available if needed. Christopher arrived at Elena's modest Bronx apartment at exactly 6 o'clock, carrying a wrapped package and looking slightly nervous in a way she'd never seen before. He'd changed into dark slacks and a simple button-down shirt still expensive, but less intimidating than his usual suits. Is that for Sofia? Elena asked, gesturing to the package. I wasn't sure what 7-year-olds like, he admitted. So I asked the woman at the toy store. She suggested art supplies. Elena's heart melted a little. This powerful, dangerous man was nervous about meeting her daughter. Sofia was in the living room, coloring at the coffee table, when they entered. She looked up, her brown eyes curious and assessing. Sofia, sweetheart, this is Mr. Martin. He's the man I work for, Elena said gently. Christopher, this is my daughter, Sofia. Christopher crouched down to Sofia's level, a gesture Elena appreciated deeply. It's very nice to meet you, Sofia. Your mom has told me a lot about you. Like what? Sofia asked, direct in the way only children could be. Like how brave you are, how you go to physical therapy even though it's hard sometimes, how you're the best artist in your class. Christopher offered her the package. Speaking of which, I brought you something. Sofia looked at her mother for permission. Elena nodded, and Sofia carefully unwrapped the gift, her eyes widening when she saw the expensive set of art supplies inside professional-grade colored pencils, markers, watercolors, a sketch pad with thick, quality paper. Wow, Sofia breathed. These are really nice. Thank you, Mr. Martin. You're welcome, and you can call me Christopher if your mom says it's okay. They ate pizza at the small kitchen table, and Elena watched in amazement as Christopher engaged Sofia in conversation about her art, her favorite subjects at school, her friends. He listened with genuine interest, asked thoughtful questions, and never once talked down to her. After dinner, Sofia showed Christopher her current art project, a watercolor painting of a sunset she'd been working on for weeks. This is beautiful, Christopher said, studying it seriously. The way you blended the colors here? That's very advanced technique. Sofia beamed. Miss Patterson taught me. She's my art teacher. Well, you're a fast learner. Christopher glanced at Elena, then back at Sofia. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something. Your mom and I have been discussing it, and we think it might be a good idea for you and your mom to move to a different apartment, one that's closer to a really good school, and has a park nearby where you can play. Sofia's expression turned wary. Why? I like our apartment. I know you do. Elena interjected gently, sitting down beside her daughter. And I like it too. But the new place would give us more space. You'd have your own room, bigger than the one you have now. And there would be people in the building who could help us stay safe. Safe from what? Sofia's voice had gotten smaller, younger. Christopher and Elena exchanged glances. They'd discussed how much to tell her, how much truth a 7-year-old could handle. From people who might want to cause problems because of the work I do, Christopher said carefully. I have a job that sometimes makes other people upset with me. And because your mom works for me now, I want to make sure nothing bad happens to either of you. Sofia processed this with the seriousness of a child who'd already learned that the world could be difficult and unfair. Are you a good guy or a bad guy? The question hung in the air. Elena held her breath. Christopher met Sofia's eyes directly. I try to be a good guy. I help people when I can, but sometimes I have to do things that aren't nice to protect the people I care about. Does that make sense? Like when Tommy pushed me on the playground and I pushed him back even though pushing is wrong? Kind of like that? Yes. Sofia considered this, then looked at her mother. Do you like Christopher, Mommy? Elena felt her cheeks warm, but she answered honestly. Yes, baby. I like him very much. And he's going to keep us safe? I promise, Christopher said, his voice firm. Nothing is going to hurt you or your mom. I won't let it. Sofia studied him for a long moment with the intense scrutiny only children possessed, looking for lies or insincerity. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her, because she nodded. Okay, we can move. But I want to bring my art table. Whatever you want to bring. We'll bring, Christopher assured her. And if you don't like the new place, we'll figure something else out. After Sofia went to bed, Elena walked Christopher to the door. He pulled her close, kissing her forehead. She's incredible, he said quietly. Smart, brave, creative. You've done an amazing job with her. She likes you. Elena rested her head against his chest. I wasn't sure she would, but she does. The feeling is mutual. His arms tightened around her. Tomorrow, we move you both. I've already arranged everything: movers, security, coordination with her school. All you have to do is pack what you want to keep. Christopher. Elena pulled back to look at him. Thank you. For tonight. For being gentle with her. For understanding how important this is. She's important because she's important to you. And you're important to me. He kissed her properly then, deep and slow. Get some sleep. Tomorrow starts our new life. As Elena closed the door behind him and leaned against it, she felt the weight of the decision settle into certainty. This was right. Complicated and dangerous and unconventional, but right. She just hoped the danger stayed theoretical. She'd learned soon enough that hope wasn't always enough. The move happened with military precision. Christopher's team arrived at 8 in the morning, professional and efficient, packing and transporting everything Elena wanted to keep. By noon, she and Sofia were standing in their new apartment, surrounded by boxes but already feeling the difference. Sofia explored every room, claiming the bedroom with the window seat immediately and declaring it perfect for drawing. Elena unpacked essentials while Christopher coordinated with his security team, his phone constantly at his ear as he managed a dozen details simultaneously. That evening, after Sofia was asleep in her new room, Elena and Christopher sat on the balcony overlooking the city. She'd opened a bottle of wine, one of several that had mysteriously appeared in her new kitchen, courtesy of Christopher's staff. How are you feeling? He asked, his arm around her shoulders. Overwhelmed, grateful, terrified, She took a sip of wine. Normal, I guess. This is a lot, I know that. It is. But Sofia seems happy. And that's what matters most. Elena set her glass down and turned to face him. When do you tell me about the Cordovas? About what you're planning to do about them? Christopher's expression hardened slightly. Tomorrow. I have a meeting scheduled with their leadership to make it clear that you and Sofia are off limits. That touching you in any way will have consequences they're not prepared to face. And if they don't listen, then I make good on those consequences. His voice had gone cold, dangerous. Elena, I need you to understand something. The men I do business with respect, strength, and fear reprisal. Negotiation from a position of weakness gets you nowhere. So I'm going into that meeting from a position of absolute strength. And I'm making it clear that harming you would be the last mistake they ever make. You're talking about violence. I'm talking about protection. There's a difference. Is there? She echoed the question she'd asked before. Because it sounds like you're threatening to kill people who threaten us. If necessary, yes. He didn't sugarcoat it. Would you prefer I handle this diplomatically and hope they respect boundaries they've already violated by surveilling you? Elena wanted to say yes. Wanted to believe there was a peaceful solution to this problem. But she'd seen the surveillance photos, understood that the Cordovas had already crossed a line. Polite requests wouldn't uncross it. Just don't get yourself killed, she said quietly. Sofia's already attached to you, and if something happens to you because of us, I'll never forgive myself. Christopher pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. Nothing's going to happen to me. I've been doing this for 15 years, Elena. I know how to handle territorial disputes. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that his experience and resources would be enough. But the fear remained, a cold knot in her stomach. When is this meeting? Tomorrow afternoon. I'll have extra security here while I'm gone. Not just building security, but my personal team. You and Sofia won't be alone for a second. Elena nodded against his chest, trying to absorb comfort from his steady heartbeat. Promise me you'll come back. I promise. Nothing could keep me from coming back to you. They sat in silence for a long while, holding each other as the city lights sparkled below. Elena tried not to think about all the ways tomorrow could go wrong. Tried to focus on the present moment, safe, protected, loved. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Again, the next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Christopher left at 2 o'clock, kissing Elena like he was going to war, which in a sense he was. She spent the afternoon trying to act normal for Sofia's sake, helping with homework, playing games, making dinner. But every time her phone buzzed, her heart leaped into her throat. At 7 o'clock, still no word from Christopher. Elena had put Sofia to bed and was pacing the living room when her phone finally rang. Not Christopher. James. Elena, I need you to stay calm, James said without preamble, and Elena's blood turned to ice. What happened? Where's Christopher? The meeting went badly. The Cordovas refused to negotiate, made threats instead. Christopher's handling it. To tell you that you're safe, that the building's security has been tripled, and that he'll contact you himself as soon as he can. Escalation meaning what exactly? Elena's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. James, what the hell is happening? I can't give you details over the phone, but Christopher wanted you to know he's okay and that everything is under control. If everything was under control, he'd be calling me himself. She was shouting now, past caring about volume. Tell me the truth, James. Is he in danger? A pause. Yes, but he's also extremely capable, and he has the best security team in the city with him. Elena, you need to trust that he knows what he's doing. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. The call ended before she could respond, leaving Elena staring at her phone in helpless fury. She wanted to go to him, to help somehow, but she knew that would only make things worse. Her presence would distract him, make him vulnerable. So she did the only thing she could. She waited. Hours passed. 9 o'clock, 10, 11. Elena sat on the couch, her phone clutched in her hand, jumping at every sound from the hallway. At 11:43, she heard the key card in the lock. She was on her feet instantly, heart hammering. Christopher walked through the door, and Elena's breath caught. He was alive, whole, but there was blood on his shirt, not his, she realized with dizzying relief, but someone else's. His knuckles were split and bruised. his expression harder than she'd ever seen it. "Christopher." She crossed to him, hands hovering uncertainly. "Not sure where to touch that wouldn't hurt. I'm okay." His voice was rough, exhausted. "It's over. The Cordovas have agreed to terms. You and Sofia are off limits, protected by treaty. They won't come near you again." "What did you do?" She searched his face, seeing the darkness there, the shadow of violence committed. "What I had to." He moved past her toward the bathroom. "I need to clean up. Is Sofia asleep?" "Yes." Elena followed him, watching as he stripped off his ruined shirt and examined the damage to his hands. "Christopher, talk to me. What happened?" He ran water over his knuckles, wincing slightly. "The Cordovas wanted a show of strength. They thought they could intimidate me, make me back down. They were wrong." "Did you—" She couldn't finish the question. "Kill anyone?" "No. But I made it very clear what would happen if they touched you." He dried his hands carefully, then turned to face her. Their second in command tried to call my bluff. Suggested that maybe they'd test my resolve by approaching Sofia at school. So I broke his arm in 3 places and explained, in detail, what I'd do to anyone who even looked at my family wrong. "Your family." Elena focused on those words, trying to process everything else later. "Yes." Christopher moved toward her, cupping her face with his battered hands. "You and Sofia. You're my family now, Elena. And I protect what's mine." She should be horrified, should be afraid of this man who'd just admitted to breaking someone's bones to protect them. Instead, she felt a fierce surge of relief and something darker satisfaction that he'd made the threat real, that he'd proven he would do anything to keep them safe. "Are you really okay?" she asked, examining his face for injuries she might have missed. "Bruised ribs, split knuckles, nothing serious." He pulled her close, seemingly needing the contact as much as she did. "I'm sorry I couldn't call sooner. Things moved quickly, and I needed to finish it before they had time to regroup. James said you were in danger." "I was. But I had the advantage of superior numbers and strategic positioning, and I had motivation they couldn't match, knowing that if I failed, you and Sofia would be vulnerable." His arms tightened around her. "That wasn't an option." Elena held him, feeling the tension slowly drain from his body as the adrenaline faded. "What happens now? Now we live our lives. The treaty is solid. The Cordovas know that violating it would start a war they can't win. You go to work, Sofia goes to school, and we build something together without constantly looking over our shoulders. Is it really that simple? No. There will always be threats, always be complications. This life doesn't come with guarantees." He pulled back to look at her, his gray eyes intense. "But I can promise you that I will always fight for you, always protect you, always come home to you if it's humanly possible." "And if it's not humanly possible someday?" The question hurt to ask, but she needed to know. "Then I've made arrangements. You and Sofia would be taken care of financially for the rest of your lives. You'd have protection, resources, everything you need." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "But I plan to be around for a very long time, Elena. You're not getting rid of me that easily." She kissed him then, tasting blood and exhaustion and relief. "I love you. Even when you terrify me. Even when I don't understand your world. I love you. I love you too. More than I thought I could love anyone." He rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight. I need to hold you. Need to know you're safe." They showered together, Elena carefully washing the blood from his skin. Christopher wincing occasionally but remaining stoic, then collapsed into bed. Elena fitted herself against his side, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow as exhaustion claimed him. "Elena," he murmured drowsily. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not running. For staying even when I gave you every reason to leave. For loving me despite everything." "You make it easy," she whispered back. "Even when it's hard." He was asleep within minutes, his breathing deep and even. Elena lay awake longer, processing everything that had happened, everything that had changed. She'd fallen in love with a dangerous man. A man who broke bones to protect his family, who negotiated with criminals, who existed in a world of violence and power. But he was also a man who'd been gentle with her daughter, who'd given her dignity and opportunity, who'd fought for them without hesitation. Love wasn't simple. It never had been. But maybe that was okay. Maybe complicated love was worth the fear and uncertainty. Maybe safety and passion could coexist, even in a world built on danger. Elena finally drifted to sleep with Christopher's arms around her, feeling more protected than she'd ever felt in her life. And for now, that was enough. 3 months later, Elena stood in the kitchen of their apartment. She'd started thinking of it as their apartment somewhere along the way, making breakfast while Sofia practiced piano in the living room. Christopher had bought the piano last month, claiming every artist should have multiple mediums to explore. Sofia had taken to it immediately, her little fingers finding melodies with the same intuitive grace she showed with visual art. The physical therapy had worked miracles, her hands barely swelled anymore, and she could grip and hold without pain. Christopher emerged from the bedroom, already dressed for work in one of his impeccable suits. He'd been staying over most nights, keeping clothes here, gradually moving his life into theirs with an organic ease that felt natural rather than invasive. "Morning," he said, kissing the top of Elena's head before moving to the coffee pot. "Is that Sofia playing? Or do we have a prodigy in the building?" "Definitely Sofia. She's been practicing that piece for an hour already." Elena flipped the pancakes, smiling. Dr. Patel said yesterday that she might actually achieve full remission. The new medication is working better than anyone expected. "That's incredible." Christopher moved to the doorway of the living room, watching Sofia with visible affection. "Hey, princess. Those pancakes are getting cold. Just one more time," Sofia called back, finishing her piece with a flourish before bounding into the kitchen. They ate breakfast together like a normal family, or as normal as a family could be when the father figure ran a criminal empire and the mother supervised his properties. But the mundane domesticity of it made Elena's heart full. After dropping Sofia at school with discreet security trailing at a distance, Christopher drove Elena to Martin Tower. "I have something to ask you," he said as they pulled into the parking garage. "And you can say no if you want." Elena raised an eyebrow. "That sounds ominous." "It's not ominous. It's—" He paused, seeming uncharacteristically uncertain. "I want you and Sofia to move into my house. We already live together most of the time. I mean my actual house. The one in Westchester, 30 minutes outside the city. It has land, security that's integrated rather than added on, space for Sofia to play without constant supervision." He took her hand. "I want to give you both a real home, Elena. Not just an apartment I own, but a place that's yours. Ours." Elena processed this, understanding what he was really asking. "You want us to leave the city. I want us to build a life together somewhere safer than Manhattan, somewhere Sofia can run in the backyard without me worrying about surveillance or threats." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "I know it's a big step, but I'm ready for it if you are. What about work? You can work remotely, coordinate with James on executive floor management, come into the city a few times a week if you want. Or," he hesitated, "you could consider reducing your hours, focusing more on Sofia. I know you value your independence, but the financial pressure isn't there anymore. You could choose what you want to do, rather than what you have to do." It was tempting, incredibly tempting, to give Sofia space and safety, to have options rather than necessities. But Elena had learned the hard way what happened when you became financially dependent on someone. "I want to keep working," she said carefully. "Maybe reduced hours, maybe remotely. But I need something that's mine, Christopher. Can you understand that?" "Completely. And I'm not asking you to give up your independence. I'm asking you to expand your options." He lifted her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "Move in with me. Let me give you and Sofia the life you deserve. And keep your job, keep your autonomy, keep everything that makes you who you are. I just want you to do it from our home instead of my apartment." "Our home." The phrase settled over Elena with unexpected warmth. "Can we see it? The house? Before I decide?" "Absolutely. This weekend, we'll drive out there. Sofia can explore. You can imagine what life would be like there. And then you can decide." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his usually severe features. No pressure, just possibilities. The house was beautiful, set on 5 acres of wooded property with a long driveway and security gates that were discreet but thorough. The structure itself was stone and wood, blending into the landscape rather than dominating it. Large windows let in natural light, and the interior was warm and inviting, nothing like the sterile luxury Elena had expected. Sofia ran through the rooms with delight, claiming the bedroom with the built-in bookshelves, exploring the finished basement that Christopher said could be converted into an art studio, discovering the tree swing in the backyard. "There's a pond on the property," Christopher said, walking with Elena through the spacious kitchen. "Stocked with fish if Sofia wants to learn. And the school district here is excellent. Small class sizes, strong arts program." Elena looked out at the property, watching Sofia run across the lawn with more energy and freedom than she'd ever shown in the city. "It's perfect." Too perfect. What do you mean? I mean, it's everything I ever wanted for her and never thought we'd have. And part of me is terrified that if I say yes, if I let myself have this, it'll all be taken away somehow. Christopher moved behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist. I can't promise that nothing will ever go wrong. Life doesn't work that way. But I can promise that I will do everything in my power to protect this, to keep you both safe and happy and loved. What happens when Sofia gets older and starts asking questions about what you do? When she's old enough to understand that the security and the money and the lifestyle come from things that aren't entirely legal, then we tell her the truth, age appropriately, that I run businesses that sometimes operate in gray areas, that I've made choices I'm not always proud of, but that I made them to survive, to build something, to protect the people I care about. His voice was steady, honest, and we teach her to make her own choices, to understand that the world isn't black and white, that good people sometimes do complicated things. Elena turned in his arms to face him. You really think we can make this work? The three of us, building a life together despite everything? I know we can, because we already are. He cupped her face gently. Elena, I love you. I love Sofia. I want to wake up with you every morning and come home to you every night. I want to watch Sofia grow up, help with homework, teach her to drive someday. I want everything that comes with building a family, even the complicated parts. Tears pricked Elena's eyes. I want that too. So move in with me. Not because you need my protection or my money, but because you want to build a life with me. Because you love me despite my flaws and my dangerous world. Because 3 months ago I promised you I'd come home to you. And I want to make that promise permanent. Yes, Elena heard herself say. Yes, we'll move in. We'll build this life with you. Christopher's kiss was deep and thorough, full of relief and joy and promise. When they broke apart, he was smiling wider than she'd ever seen. Thank you, he said against her lips. Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for giving me a reason to hope again. They stood there in the kitchen of their future home, holding each other while outside the window. Sofia played in the autumn sunshine, her laughter carrying on the breeze. It wasn't perfect. Their life would never be completely normal or entirely safe, but it was theirs, built on love and trust, and the fierce determination to protect what mattered most. And sometimes, that was more than enough. Sometimes, that was everything. Elena sat on the porch swing, watching Sofia chase butterflies across the lawn with the kind of carefree joy that still made her tear up sometimes. The move to Westchester had been the right choice. Sofia had flourished here, making friends at her new school, spending hours in her art studio, living the childhood Elena had always wanted to give her. Christopher's car pulled into the driveway, earlier than usual. He emerged carrying flowers, sunflowers, Elena's favorite, and wearing an expression that was both nervous and determined. You're home early, Elena said as he climbed the porch steps. I wanted to talk to you about something, and I wanted Sofia here too, he called out. Princess, can you come here for a minute? Sofia bounded over, slightly out of breath and grinning. Hi, Christopher. Do you like my new painting? I finished the one with the sunset. I love it. We'll hang it in the dining room. He sat down on the swing beside Elena, pulling Sofia onto his lap with easy affection. I have something important to ask both of you. Elena's heart started beating faster, sensing where this was going. Christopher reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a stunning engagement ring, emerald-cut diamond, elegant and understated. But he wasn't looking at Elena when he opened it. He was looking at Sofia. Sofia, I love your mom very much. And I love you very much too. I want us to be a real family, officially, which means I want to ask your mom to marry me, but I wanted to make sure that was okay with you first. Sofia's eyes went wide, darting between Christopher and the ring. You want to marry Mommy? Very much, but only if you're comfortable with that. This is your family too, and your opinion matters. Sofia thought about it seriously, her brow furrowing in concentration. Then she looked at Elena. Do you want to marry Christopher, Mommy? Elena felt tears spilling down her cheeks. Yes, baby, I do. And he'll be here all the time? Like a real dad? I'll be here all the time, Christopher confirmed. Every morning, every night, every important moment. I'll be your dad in every way that matters, if you'll let me. Sofia threw her arms around Christopher's neck, hugging him tight. Okay, you can marry Mommy. Christopher's arms tightened around the little girl, his eyes meeting Elena's over Sofia's shoulder. The emotion there, love and relief and joy, made Elena's breath catch. He gently set Sofia down, then knelt before Elena, taking her hand. Elena Rodriguez, you crashed into my life when I needed you most, even though neither of us knew it at the time. You showed me that strength isn't about power, it's about getting up every day and fighting for the people you love. You taught me that I could be more than what I'd built, that I could have a family and love and a reason to come home every night. His voice roughened with emotion. I love you more than I thought I could love anyone. Will you marry me? Yes, Elena said, her voice breaking on the word. Yes, absolutely yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her while Sofia cheered and clapped beside them. When they broke apart, Sofia tugged on Christopher's sleeve. Does this mean I can call you Dad now? Christopher crouched down to her level, his eyes suspiciously bright. Okay, Dad. Sofia tested the word, then grinned. Can I go tell Mrs. Martinez? She's going to be so excited. Go ahead, Princess. They watched her run toward the neighbor's house, her joy infectious. Are you sure about this? Elena asked, looking at the ring on her finger. Taking on all of this, me, Sofia, the complications? I've never been more sure of anything. Christopher pulled her close, his hand resting over her heart. You're my family, Elena, both of you, and I protect what's mine. We're yours, she agreed, rising on her toes to kiss him. And you're ours, forever. As they sat on the porch swing, Christopher's arm around her shoulders, watching Sofia run back across the lawn already breathless. With excitement about sharing her news, Elena felt complete peace for the first time in her life. This was what she'd been fighting for all those years, not just survival, but this. A home filled with love, a daughter who was healthy and happy, a man who cherished them both and would move mountains to keep them safe. The world outside their gates was still dangerous. Christopher's business was still complicated and morally ambiguous. There would still be threats and challenges and moments of fear, but they would face it all together, as a family, and that made all the difference. The gallery opening was everything Elena had hoped for and more. The walls were filled with Sofia's artwork, paintings, and drawings that showed remarkable talent for a 9-year-old. Local art critics had come, parents from Sofia's school, and a surprising number of Christopher's business associates who'd developed genuine affection for the precocious little artist. Christopher stood beside Elena, his hand resting on the small of her back, watching Sofia explain one of her pieces to an interested buyer. She's incredible, he murmured. Just like her mother. Elena leaned into him, her wedding ring catching the light. We did good, didn't we? We did. Perfect. He kissed her temple. Though I have to admit, when I promoted a cleaning woman 2 years ago, I didn't expect to end up here, married with a daughter and a baby on the way. Elena's hand rested on her barely visible baby bump. The pregnancy still early, but already filling them both with joy, deliriously happy and wondering how I got so lucky. His arms came around her, his hands covering hers over their growing child. I love you, Mrs. Martin, I love you too. Across the gallery, Sofia was gesturing animatedly at one of her paintings, her hands moving freely and painlessly, the arthritis in full remission for over a year now. She caught sight of her parents and waved, her smile bright enough to light the entire room. Elena waved back, her heart full to overflowing. This was their life now. Art openings and family dinners, security protocols and bedtime stories. The dangerous edges of Christopher's world carefully managed to protect the soft center they'd created together. It wasn't the life Elena had imagined for herself years ago when she'd been working 3 jobs and barely surviving. It was better than anything she could have dreamed, because she'd found something more precious than safety or security or even stability. She'd found love, real, complicated, fierce love that had transformed everything. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The power of choosing someone despite the obstacles, the courage to build a family against all odds, the strength to protect what you loved, no matter the cost. Christopher Martin had taught her that strength came in many forms, and Elena Rodriguez had taught him that love was worth any risk. Together, they'd built something extraordinary from the most unlikely beginning, and they were just getting started. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.